Guys, in a recent poll on my channel, I asked for the best cold approach to attract women. I was shocked to see 23% of my audience voted for nightclubs. Because as you've seen by the title, I've got 10 reasons. Yes, 10 reasons why nightclubs are awful for approaching. And probably the second worst, coming only after online dating. Once this video is finished, you'll never want to step foot on a sticky nightclub floor again. Anyway, starting with reason 1. As perfectly evidenced by this clip, no women actually go to nightclubs to meet quality guys. Here is a complete list of the main reasons why women go to nightclubs. 1. To reject guys and inflate their ego. 2. Cope with a recent heartbreak. 3. Get revenge after a recent heartbreak. 4. Get free drinks. 5. Have fun with friends, which means they're entirely disinterested from male attention. 6. To look good on social media. 7. To make a guy who she's currently dating jealous by uploading to social media. 8. Go with Chad for one night. But this last point is pretty much redundant now, as online dating has made this more accessible than nightclubs. Anyway, the point is, notice how none of these reasons have anything to do with meeting quality guys. The best you're going to get in a nightclub is one of these, which in some cases maybe you'll get lucky and have this lead to a one night stand. However, even this isn't so brilliant as a possible outcome. And this second point for reason 2 ties in perfectly to explain it. In my opinion, nightclub flings are one of the most unfulfilling forms of intimacy possible. In fact, I believe the only thing more unfulfilling is by paying for it directly. Let me explain, and there's 2 reasons, both physical and emotional. Firstly, on the physical side, I want to point out that when you actually get to the point of doing it, since you've been intoxicated by alcohol, there is a much greater chance of complications occurring in the bedroom. And second, which is the more important point, is the lack of emotional fulfillment. It's interesting because just about every content creator I've seen talk about their quote-unquote PUA phase, they've all said that this part of their life brought them the least satisfaction, least happiness, least fulfillment, and for the most part it was a complete waste of time. This is in conjunction with my own experiences too. I believe right now there is this stigma that if you're a guy who doesn't go out regularly, takes women back to their place and lives like James Bond, then you're a loser. But, truth be told, I think it's the opposite. It personally took me 2 times to realise that one night stands are unfulfilling. And this was all when I was 18 and before university. And what's more is before this, I spent years being down in the dumps and envious of guys that were in the game and able to do it so regularly. Then, it wasn't until I actually had the experiences myself, I realised I wasn't really missing out on anything. Call me blue-pilled all you like, but I believe only long-term relationships build lasting satisfaction. I'd even go as far to say, if you're still in the casual dating scene after 10 times, you're only wasting your energy. At this point, you have proof you can do it consistently. What more are you gaining by spending more time and more money by pushing a number higher than it already is? For a lot of guys, their count will never be enough. And I think if that doesn't show at least some form of insecurity or addiction present, then I don't know what does. Anyway, moving on to reason number 3. Overly aggressive competition. In my opinion, a nightclub is the most hostile environment you'll encounter with other guys on a regular basis. The problem with nightclubs is there's so many drunk guys in such a small space that occasional aggro is a part of it. I've been in clubs and I've found men get hostile for the smallest and most petty things. You bump his shoulder, he bumps you back with more force. You touch his shoes with your foot, he gets angry and pushes you. This problem is made even worse when there's several guys competing for one woman. It basically turns into a mogging match where each guy is trying to prove he's the toughest, strongest, and most alpha. Of all forms of approaching, nothing comes close to being as primitive as approaching in a nightclub. It's a testament of shame when you look at how far we've come as a species. Bottom line, nightclubs are a breeding ground for overly competitive, fake alpha, short-tempered and desperate men. who in worst case scenario will leave you with either a broken nose or a night behind bars and an assault charge. Anyway, now I've got these first 3 reasons out the way, now is a good time to press the like button and leave any thoughts you have so far in the comments below, as it helps the YouTube algorithm. Now moving on to reason 4, and I believe this risk is inherently tied to the nature of nightclub flings, and that is the risk of getting catfished. In the UK where I'm from, we have this term called beer goggles, which is basically when guys make the mistake of thinking women are way more attractive than they actually are after drinking a significant amount of alcohol. Additionally, add on top the facts that in a nightclub, the lighting is low, making it hard to see people's faces, and all the women are dressed up looking their best, and some are wearing so much makeup it makes them look like an entirely different person. All of these factors combined makes it far more likely you could end up home with someone who you wouldn't in a million years approach if you saw her in the street. The last important point I want to make on this is why I have zero sympathy for guys who complain about this happening to them. Because if I'm honest, the problem isn't the woman. Rather, the problem is the environment. Catfishing only happens in 2 places: online dating and nightclubs. If you weren't drunk, going to nightclubs, chasing women on the floor, it simply wouldn't happen. This is why if you get catfished, you only have yourself to blame, because you've put yourself in that environment in the first place. If you don't want to get catfished, don't go to nightclubs and don't date online. It's simple. Now on to reason 5, the extreme emphasis nightclubs put on looks. After online dating, which I'd say is 95% looks, nightclubs are the second most superficial environment, carrying a looks importance of 90%. Here's some truths about the importance of looks in nightclubs. 1. Women get approached non-stop. This means they can afford to have far higher looks standards. 2. Everyone is standing up, so height differences become even more noticeable. 3. The music is so loud you can't get a word in edgeways on the floor. So even if you have the best verbal game in the world, you can chalk it off as something you bring to the table, as it's redundant in this environment. However, the one exception to this is if you spend most of your time in the smoking area, where the space is a lot more relaxed and quiet. 4. Most of the women have spent potentially hours perfecting their appearance and applying makeup. So, they'd see it as an insult if a guy below their looks level hits on them. And finally, 5. The very fact nightclubs are a cold approach automatically means the importance of looks will be high. This contrasts a warm approach such as school or work, which is more forgiving for looks, as factors like your social status, personality, hobbies and interests all play a part in making you a little more attractive. But in nightclubs you have none of that, so most of your value you're able to display as a man comes solely from your appearance. Reason 6 you shouldn't go to nightclubs. The quality of women in nightclubs is far lower than real life. The more I go to nightclubs, the more I see a large proportion of the women there are overweight, have way too much makeup on, and still overestimate their attractiveness. I've shown this chart before, the 3 factors that make a perfect 10. Hot, young and undamaged. Excluding the factor young, which doesn't get worse for clubgoers, the other 2 factors almost certainly do. Out of everyone I know, I've never met people that neglect their bodies more than those in the nightclub scene. Heavy drinking is one of the main causes of weight gain, so it's likely the women you meet in clubs are going to be on average packing extra pounds. And in order to compensate for this, a lot of women pile on the makeup, which doesn't actually make a difference, but from their perspective, given the insane amount of attention they're getting from guys in the club, it's easy to see why they massively overestimate their beauty. And as for undamaged, club culture is also tightly correlated with promiscuity and illicit substance use, which most guys will consider the opposite of good qualities for a woman to have. Reason number 7, the abysmal male to female ratio. Anyone who's been to a club knows there's way more men than women. Way more. There's no measured data on this, but I'd say based on my experience, the ratio falls somewhere between 2 and 3 to 1. This imbalance causes two changes in behaviour. For the women, it makes them way more entitled because they're getting disproportionately more attention in nightclubs than they are in real life. So they end up thinking they're higher value than they actually are. And two, for the men, they stoop to lower and lower levels because their desperation compels them to do so. I've spoke about men undercutting other men before, and all it takes is one guy who's a 5 out of 10 to say, okay, I'm not getting any results currently. Therefore, I'm going to lower my standards to 3s and 4s. This one guy's actions causes a shift in the rest of the marketplace, as it now forces all the other guys to adjust their standards too. When one guy undercuts another, he brings everyone else down with him, as they all need to lower their standards in order to stay competitive. Reason number 8. Believe it or not, nightclubs are the most expensive method of approaching. Here is a complete list of every approaching method with the respective cost in this column here. As you can see, most of the approaches are either cheap or free. So online dating is free, or you can pay £20 a month for the premium version. Most warm approaches, which is talking to women you already know, are free. Meanwhile, clubbing is the most expensive one on the list, which I've put as a ballpark estimate as costing £50. This is assuming you spend £10 on home drinks to get yourself up to speed, £5 on club entry fee, £25 for drinks when you're in the club, and £10 on transport. And of course, this £50 is nothing to cry home about, but let's say you go out once per week and spend this amount each time, that adds up to £2,600 per year. What makes this worse too is when women go to the club, they can get away with paying absolutely nothing. In the UK, most clubs give women free entry in order to attract more people. And second, in the bar area of the club, there's always plenty of thirsty guys laying their wallets on the table, paying for endless drinks for these women. And the vast majority of the time, the women know exactly what they're doing. They know they can just sit with a guy for 2 minutes and he'll buy a round. And as soon as that happens, she'll make an excuse to be out of there in a second. Reason number 9. Allegations and possible legal consequences. And this links in nicely with reason 3 about aggressive drunk men. Because it's not just them you need to be worried about, but also the women. Even if you go home with a girl from a nightclub, compared to other approaches, you are way more likely to be accused for something you might actually be innocent for. There's no text messages you can use to defend yourself, it's just your word against hers. And in today's day and age, even just getting accused can be life-ruining for you. This is true even if you get proven innocent later down the line. It makes things worse that in nightclubs, most girls go together in big groups. The problems with this is not only will some of them be trying to block your chances when you're trying to get with a girl, but also if her friends see you getting into a car with her, it could all work against you if word makes it to the courts. Finally, reason number 10, the negative health impacts. Going to nightclubs requires 2 things. 1, drinking lots of alcohol, because let's be honest, if you're not drinking, you're not going to be having a good time. And 2, staying up late. Most nightclubs open from 10 till 4. But again, let's be honest, it only really gets busy after 12 and the peak hours are from 1 till 3. Anyway, to tackle this first issue, here's a complete list of the negative health effects associated with alcohol from the NHS website, the biggest health organisation in the UK. And as for staying up late, it's a similar story. Also, consistently delaying sleep will interrupt your circadian rhythm. Now, saying all this, you might not really care too much about your health. But bearing in mind 95% of the reason most men go to clubs is to approach women, going out regularly will make you put on weight faster, be more tired and have lower testosterone. All of which makes you less attractive to women and actually hurts the goal you set out to do in the first place. So, with all this said and done, I hope these reasons have given you a little change in perspective on nightclubs. If you enjoyed this video, check out the sister video on 5 reasons to avoid online dating. A link will be in the description, and make sure you like the video and leave any thoughts you have in the comments below, as it helps the YouTube algorithm.